What's up guys, Marcus here from Studio One Expert, and today we're going to be having a look at the Fat channel. More specifically, we're going to be having a look at using the Fat channel exclusively on a bunch of different types of program material. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Fat channel, let's have a really quick look at it over here. Just going to bring it up here for a second. So basically we've got a filter for the low end here, and we can dial this up anywhere from off all the way to 1 kilohertz or 1000 hertz. And then we've got a gate and expander, we've got a compressor here, we've got an equalizer, we've got 4 different bands. The bottom band and the top band can be switched between peaking mode and a shelving mode. And then we've got a limiter that we can engage here as well. So the idea behind this plugin is that it's what's referred to as a channel strip, meaning that we have lots of different tools that we can turn to in one plugin. And it's actually the heart and soul of the new Studio 192 in terms of the hardware integration. And we actually have a DSP power on board the Studio 192 to run this. Okay, so let's go ahead and close down this for a second. Now, the first tracks I want to have a look at here are these 3 up top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these. Let's just bring them into view over here. And I'm just going to turn off the Fat channel for each of these over here. So we're going to be hearing just the straight sound. So we've got 2 guitars over here. And might as well mute this one here. So stereo mic'd. And then the next thing we have here is we have a bass guitar. And that's a ukulele bass that was recorded through a direct. So let's have a look at using the Fat channel to get an improvement in sound here. Now, just as a disclaimer, I'm going to give you a warning ahead of time that these are going to be louder, but I'm trying to plow through a lot of different material here, so I won't be level matching, but I just wanted to give you guys some different sonic examples of what the Fat channel can do. All right, so let's engage this now. Can have a really quick look to see what we're doing processing-wise. So in these cases, I'm using the compressors, the EQs, and the filters. And I'm actually engaging the limiter as well. Just as a quick A/B, we'll bring that back, and let's go to the version without any Fat channel processing on it. So this makes quite a big difference. Bring the bass in. Okay, so that's our first example. Now for the next example, I want to have a look at some acoustic drums. So what we've got here is I've just pulled an acoustic drum loop from the library that's included with Studio One. And I'm going to go ahead and solo this out here for a second. And you'll notice that I have a send, a pre-fader send that's going to a bus. So let's go ahead and bring up our Fat channel here. And we're going to have a listen to see how this sounds. So we've got a basic loop here happening, nothing really exciting, but you can see that I'm doing some dramatic processing here in terms of compression and equalization. So let's add this in now. So that's a classic squash drum room sound that we've blended in. So let's have a listen to that on its own actually, and you can hear what I'm doing with the compressor here. And I can tweak my attack and release to get just the sound I'm looking for here. Little clicky there, we can bring that up. Getting a nice thwack there, and we're getting tons of ambience. So that makes a huge addition when we blend it with the original. So there's another example of using the Fat channel if you wanted to do some aggressive drum processing. That's the type of thing that we usually do with an 1176 style plugin. All right, so for the next example, I wanted to have a look at an electric drum loop here. So let's just bring that into focus. I'm going to solo this out, and let's make that loop engaged. Now I'm just going to bring up the fat channel here, and I currently have it bypassed. And what I'm doing with this is I'm doing a bit of shaping with the equalizer. I'm doing a little bit of compression. But the thing that I'm doing here is I'm using the expander to kind of change the heartbeat or the pulse of this beat. So let's have a quick listen to this dry. Now I want you to have a listen to what happens when I take it out of bypass. I can change that sustain by using the gate or expander. So in addition to doing some EQ and some compression, I can really change the way this groove is feeling or the way the heartbeat or pulse of this beat is. So for the next example here, we've got some programmed drums, and we've also got some acoustic guitars. So first of all, let's have a listen to these drums, and I'm going to bring up the fat channel for these guys over here. It's currently bypassed. So you see what I'm doing here is I've adjusted the Q, and I've put this into a shelving mode. But what I've done here is I've filtered off the low end, but then I've given it quite a bump, and I've changed the Q here so we get this little peak that happens, as opposed to having, you know, an even shelf like that. I've got it set up like this so that we get that little resonant bump at that frequency. So have a listen to how this can change the sound of the drums. So I've taken out some of the sub low end by using the filter here, but what I've actually done is I've given it a bump, a little bit more thwack, by boosting 230 over here and adjusting my Q to get this little resonant peak over here. And then truthfully, this is being filtered off, you know, somewhere around here, somewhere right about there. Okay, so I have a really quick A/B again. And then my compression here, I got a pretty fairly open attack, medium release, kind of timed with the actual tempo of the track here. So we can augment that drum loop to sound very different. Now next up, I want to have a look at one of these guitars over here. So these are just two guitars here. It's kind of like a folky type vibe. Let's go ahead and center this out, and we'll kill our reverb on this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring up the fat channel for this track, and I'm going to bypass this to start off with. So you can hear we got some frequencies that are kind of poking out here, which I've actually dipped out. And it's a little bit peaky in certain areas. Let's take it out of bypass. So it just clears it up. There's a difference. Okay, we'll wind that back to the top again. You can hear those ringing frequencies here. And that's over here. So I've just cut those out here. And then we've added some top end over here, a little bit of boost, and I've also filtered out the low end. Here I've got quite an open attack, and my release is pretty quick here. So I'm letting that kind of have a little bit of snap. Now on the next guitar, it's pretty much the same thing here. So we'll have a quick listen to that. Very similar. And I will center this out, and let's kill the reverb for this one. So on this track over here, we'll bring the fat channel up. Again, lots of boxiness, lots of build up here. Just getting rid of that. It's masking the clarity and the tone of this guitar. Then we got the compressor kicking in here. Okay, so what we'll do now is I'm just going to bring both of these back in. We'll bring our reverb back in. Let's pan this one out. We'll come up here, bring our reverb back in. We'll pan this out, and let's listen to the cumulative effect of all three of these together. do is I'll turn them off for a second here. So very effective tool just in terms of being able to clean up, filter out some low end, remove some frequencies that we don't need, and add anything that we think could be boosted or we think needs to be accentuated a little bit. Okay, so the next sample we got here is I've got a voiceover sample that I have. And this is actually courtesy of Joe Brookhouse, and he's a member of the Studio One Narrators and Voiceover Users, which is a Facebook group run by Don Barnes, and they're doing some great work with respect to Studio One and people using it for voiceover work. So let's go ahead here and let's pull up the Fat channel here. We've got it bypassed. And actually, first of all, I just want to draw your attention to these louder areas over here, because this is an area where I'm going to implement using the limiter. So let's have a quick listen.
My inner diva wanted to flip my hair and soak in the limelight, all the while making sure they got my best side for their cameras. My inner diva wanted to tell them that I was...
Okay, so that voiceover sounds pretty good to me. It was recorded well. Generally, there's not too many problems, but what I want to do with the Fat channel here is I just want to even out some of the peaks, give it a little bit of compression. I want to pull out some frequencies that I think are masking things, which is what I've done here with these two bands at 500 and another one at 871. I've added probably a little more top end and bottom end than I would normally just for sake of demonstration. And then again, we're doing our trick where we've boosted this in a shelving mode, and then we're kind of dialing up the filter. And then lastly, I've actually used the gate as well. Now, usually when I'm working with voiceover stuff, what I would do is I would actually run it through a denoiser, something like an isotope denoiser, or perhaps a new one from Era D. But what we can actually do is we can run the expander. If you're in a pinch and you really need to get something out quickly, sometimes you can dial in a really nice setting with the expander, and it's just enough to kind of kick out the noise in between the passages. So you can just kind of bring it down. So I'm using everything here. I'm using the filter, the gate, the compressor, the equalizer, and then I want you to keep your eye on the limiter when it's passing through these parts over here. So first of all, just as a quick reminder, we'll play from the top again, bypassed.
My inner diva wanted to flip my hair and soak in the limelight, all the while making sure...
Okay, now I'm going to engage it.
My inner diva wanted to flip my hair and soak in the limelight, all the while making sure...
Now, when these peaks over here, these waveforms that are a little bit larger, keep your eye on what the limiter's doing here, because the limiter's actually kind of shaving off the top here. And then I'm actually doing, quite a bit of compression with a soft knee. And then I'm doing my boost and I'm gating out. In between the words here, you can see the expander's kicking in. It's just pulling down, so any room tone or noise that's in the background is going to get kicked out.
My inner diva wanted to flip my hair and soak in the limelight, all the while making sure they got my best side for their cameras. My inner diva wanted to flip my hair and soak in the limelight, all the while making sure they got my best side for their cameras.
So that's a really crisp sounding voiceover, really nice, and we've done that all entirely with the Fat channel. All right, so for the next example here, I want to have a look at using it on lead vocal. So I've got a track here, courtesy of Paul Drew. Let's just go ahead and bring these guys into focus over here. Actually, first off, what we'll do is we'll just have a listen to the vocal on its own, and I'm going to make sure that the Fat channel is bypassed. Let's just kill the reverb.
Wrote one for you anyway. Sparks fly now, I understand the reason. Morrison is singing, come on baby, light my fire. Sparks fly now, I wanna keep believing. Every song was written for you, 'cause you're making me light up, and you're making me burn, light up.
Okay, so I've done a couple things here. I don't usually do this, especially when we have, an instrumental in the background. But what I've done is I'm running the expander the same way I did for the voiceover, which is kind of just, shutting that down in between the phrases. Then I've got the compression kicked in here. And what I've done is I've actually set it to auto. Now, normally I would set my attack and release manually. But just to kind of showcase some different options of the Fat channel here, I've got this set to auto here, and we're using a soft knee. I'm just using a 2.2 to 1 ratio, and I've just dialed in a threshold that makes sense. Now, as for the vocal on the EQ section, I'm just pulling out a little bit of stuff that is kind of cloudy to me. There's a bit of a buildup in these certain areas here. And then, of course, I've got my filter engaged, and I actually have a limiter engaged as well. So for the limiter, when he hits this part over here, we can actually see that the limiter is kicking in. So if I were to just engage playback from here, have a look at the limiter in the bottom right-hand corner here.
Sparks fly, now I understand the reason.
Okay, so I'm just shaving that off again. All right, so let's listen to this in the track, and I'm going to put the reverb back in as well. So we'll bring these two both in together, bypass this to start.
Sparks fly, now I understand the reason. Morrison is singing, come on baby, light my fire. Sparks fly, now I wanna keep believing. Every song was written for you, 'cause you're making me light up, and you're making me burn right up. You got me under a spell, I just can't fight when sparks fly.
Okay, so what this is doing is this is just bringing that vocal right up to the front here. So I'll just run this in solo again here.
Sparks fly, now I understand the reason. Morrison is singing, come on baby, light my fire. Sparks fly, now I wanna keep believing. Every song was written for you, 'cause you're making me light up, and you're making me burn right up. You got me under a spell, I just can't fight when sparks fly.
So that's got a really good result.
Sparks fly, now I understand the reason. Morrison is singing, come on baby, light my fire. Sparks fly, now I wanna keep believing. Every song was written for you, 'cause you're making me light up, and you're making me burn right up. You got me under a spell, I just can't fight when sparks fly.
So that's the Fat channel in use across multiple different types of music here. So I've used it on acoustic guitars, bass. We can use it on, acoustic drums. We've used it on some electronic stuff, nylon string guitars, a voiceover sample, vocals. You can use it on a 2-mix. It's an incredibly versatile plugin, but you can do tons of different things with this. You can get it to be clean. You can get it to be aggressive. If you just need to do some basic shaping or you just need to put the final touch on something, it's a really great plugin. Anyways, I hope you guys got something from this, and we'll talk to you later. Cheers.